Zemedeneh Negatu is the global chairman of the Fairfax Africa Fund. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Let us begin with Ethiopia, surprise peak for many. What does the country bring to the bloc?
Ethiopia has been one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And then in Africa, certainly for about a period of about 10 years, it was the fastest growing economy, period. So now, granted, at the beginning, it started from a low base, but today is the third largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa at $156 billion GDP. To give you a reference, about 20 years ago, a little over 25 years ago, it was only $8 billion. It's grown by about 15x over that period. So that the growth has been phenomenal. Secondly, Ethiopia is the second most populous country in Africa. As you know, the BRICS are so as a grouping of very large economies, and one of the goals is to be a counter to what they think is the G7's, the West influence in the world. And to do that, or at least to create the right balance, is how I see it actually, you need sizable countries with big demographics, big GDP. So at 127 million people today, Ethiopia is the second largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa after Nigeria.
Zem, how significant is it that there's now 3 African countries in the BRICS?
Today, Africa has very little voice, if anything, in the big global institutions. We look at the World Bank, the IMF, to a certain extent in the UN, but we don't have a permanent seat in the Security Council. So if you look at all these factors, and even in the G20, it's only South Africa that's represented there, right? So whereas now Africa has 3 voices in in a very formidable group called the BRICS. Not only today, by the way, I'm forward-looking. If you look at 10, 15, 20 years down the road, the BRICS are going to be extremely powerful. So for Africa to have a voice, to be at the table where decisions are made, and that's, I think, where the grievance are from what I hear by African leadership is decisions are made on their behalf and they're recipient. They're not decision makers. So whereas with the BRICS, they have 3 voices out of 11. And also, they have very like-minded partners within the BRICS.
I'll take you back to Ethiopia now. When it formally enters the bloc in January, it will be the BRICS' smallest economy. How can Ethiopia be a resourceful member of the BRICS given the size of its economy?
Ethiopia intends to be and is planning to be the manufacturer. It's commonly referred to the China of Africa because it's an ambitious goal of becoming an industrial economy. It's a large population using labor-intensive industries moving here from China, from the West and all that. So that will also benefit the BRICS grouping, but also Ethiopia. The other element is, of course, Ethiopia is a member of the BRICS. You know, the BRICS Bank has billions of dollars, and it's going to continue to grow at that rate. So wherever there's limitations of accessing finance from the West, in particular from the IMF and the World Bank, it can complement financing sources from the BRICS Bank, but also from China, also from India. But the BRICS also will be significantly benefiting from having a dynamic, growing country in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Zem, BRICS is seen by many in the West as a rival. How can countries such as Ethiopia, Egypt navigate relations with the West while at the same time being members of the BRICS?
I have a different view than a lot of analysts or commentators who said that it's an either-or proposition. Either you are with the West or you're with the BRICS. I don't see it at all. I'm on the record. I've said this many times. They're complementary. Look at who was admitted, okay? Ethiopia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and UAE are very strong allies, long-term allies of the United States and the West. However, it's an additional forum for shaping global thinking. I'm talking about the BRICS that these countries are joining, but also if you are a member of a group, you'll be prioritized in receiving, allocating financing from China or India or Russia or from Brazil. So these are not mutually exclusive groupings.
Zemedeneh Negatu, nice to have you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ronald, for having me.